I worked a lot, very hard.
Yeah.
Very, very hard. And raising 3 children, in such a demanding professional environment without the support we have today. Today, it's easy to, you stay home, you work remotely, you open your laptop and you can continue your work. Back then we had PCs, we didn't have laptops. So I would put my daughter to bed, my newborn daughter to bed, and I would go back, physically driving back to the office in the middle of the night to finish my work. So it was really hard. I would go into trainings, and because I was breastfeeding for 12 months, and maternity leave back then was like a few weeks. Gosh. I would just take my mother-in-law, would sit in the car, I would get down from training, do the break time to breastfeed the daughter, and then go up to the training, come back, during lunchtime, do the same. So that required a lot of resilience, hard work, I don't know. Most people think that talking about inclusion is all about fluffy stuff, it's HR related, making people feel good, and it's something that we need to do on the side, but we need to focus on the strategy and making money. They don't realize that by having people fully engaged, by having people happy, have a sense of belonging in an organization, actually make them more productive, more engaged, and the company more profitable.
Do you ever, as a leader, not feel very vulnerable in front of your group or team, and how do you kind of navigate that?
I think vulnerability is part of humility, and I think humility is lacking from leadership today. You don't have many humble leaders. You have a lot of narcissist leaders, a lot of egomaniacs, a lot of me kind of thing.
Hello, and welcome to the Future Makers podcast, an Ollie.cy and the Future Media production. This is a podcast about how future makers are made in Cyprus and beyond. I am your host, Annette Benzar. Let's begin. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Cleo Papadopoulou, partner, chief learning officer, and chief inclusion and diversity officer at PwC. Welcome to the podcast, Cleo.
Hello, nice to see you, Netta. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for being here. I'd like to start from a question to talk about your early life. I always like to quote Kierkegaard here, who says, "We understand life backwards, but live it forwards." How does that quote kind of apply to your life? And can you tell us a little bit about how your early life and how it kind of shaped the way you view life and work today?
So I was born to parents who were teachers. So from the early years, I was taught to be an achiever. And actually, my mom was my teacher until the 5th grade of primary school. And she wouldn't allow her daughter not to know anything in class. And she would actually make a fool of me if she asked a question I didn't know. So I was, from the early, very, very early years, taught to study hard, to be an achiever, and not to give up. So if I wanted to start piano lessons, for example, you can start, but you were not allowed to stop. So you had to follow through whatever you started. And that actually taught me a lot of things on how to sort of keep persevering in life. And no matter how many obstacles I find or things become boring, that I don't stop on what I had as a target. The other thing that shaped me is that my biggest passion in life is dancing. So I actually went to the UK to become a ballerina.
Oh, wow.
And then I qualified as an accountant. And dancing is hard work for those of us who have done it, or whether you do a sport, it's the same thing. You need a lot of training. So from the very early years, I was training for 4 or 5 hours a day in class. And then I would just go home and do my homework and my A-levels and all my studies, etc. So that taught me resilience, again, more hard work, and actually focus and discipline. And the last thing is that my parents allowed me and my brother to do things the way we wanted to do things. So we had like space to be creative and take control of our lives. So that taught us to have critical thinking, to solve problems for ourselves rather than our parents solving problems for us. So that actually 3 things that really shaped my early childhood. And I mean, an advice I would give to all the parents is don't solve all problems for your children, because this is what happens today, actually. And I find that really sad, because kids grow up without any resilience and without facing any challenges. And actually to push them and never to give up. And for the younger generation out there, my advice would be there's no fast track to success or money. There's a lot of hard work in the process.
I love how you've said this, you need to build up that resilience. And that point that you were making about, if you start something, you're going to see it through. I do feel like that is something, a lot of people are starting something nowadays, and it's kind of like, okay, I'll start it. And then there's this open-ended, like, ... I'll finish it one day. I'll start this book. I'll finish it one day. There's a lot of unopened or open chapters that are left just like that. And I guess I can see that in... What was the script that your parents were kind of giving you? Like, what were they envisioning? Or even the culture you were kind of growing up in. What was that script of, like, what your future should be?
I think their script, because of their upbringing, was... they wanted me to become a teacher to start with. And I refused that because... patience is not my biggest strength. So especially with children.
Despite being in like ballet, piano, which is
patience with people. Okay. Especially with children. So that's not my strongest. So I couldn't see myself becoming a teacher like them. So I had other things that I wanted to do for myself. So from that perspective, I didn't follow the script. It was the first no I actually said to my parents. I said, I don't know what I want to become. I love dancing and I want to pursue that, but definitely I don't want to become a teacher. So they compromised in becoming a dance teacher. Okay. So she said, okay, you can study dance and you become a dance teacher. So that was, I don't think they had anything else in mind other than, following your passion and working really hard and never giving up. And back to, following things through, that doesn't apply to all, of course, because if you try something, it doesn't work and, it's a failure, of course, you need to stop and move something else. This is part of, trying things out and see what works out. But what I'm trying to say is that you can't have dreams and goals without actually implementing them. So you need to do the hard work to implement what you have in mind. Otherwise, it just stays as a dream or as a goal.
A what if?
Yeah.
So you were pursuing dance when you went to the UK, and what happened then?
Basically, an injury showed me how fragile the life of a dancer is. And also dancing is for maybe 10 years until you're 30, early 30s, and then you have to retire and you become a teacher.
Yeah.
And teaching, as I said, it was not my cup of tea. So because of that injury, I couldn't get into the Royal School of Ballet, which was my dream. And I joined another company. And then from there on, I was like, if I'm not going to join the best, then I'll just do something else. And I don't regret it because, life showed me a different path. I became an accountant. I have a successful career. And now dance is my hobby and my passion after office hours.
And sometimes earning money from your passion, especially when it comes to sport and any of like the arts.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's so difficult.
It's true.
how do you monetize something that, brings you joy? But it's encouraging to see that, you are still kind of pursuing it for yourself.
I think it's a privilege to be able to do something that you love without the need to make money.
Yeah.
So what I do now, for example, which is part of my purpose to touch positively people's lives, I teach Zumba.
Nice.
Free of charge to people, and there's a voluntary donation for charity. So I help a family with the money that I collect from Zumba. So that part I still do. I do enjoy it. It's a way for me to force myself to exercise 3 times a week by becoming a teacher instead of joining a class and say, I'm going to skip the class today. If you're teaching the class, you can't skip it. Yeah. So you need to show up no matter what. So that part to discipline and doing stuff, but actually it's combining my hobby with helping people in the office just to get out of their chairs and move a bit and empty their mind, and at the same time helping a family that needs money. So that's a very sweet spot to be if you can.
Exactly. And you are you're connecting with people, and you're doing that like through movement. Yeah. And you're talking about Zumba. Is it mostly for women?
The person who set up Zumba is a man, but actually men in Cyprus and dancing are not really friends. So it's primarily for women. That's what I do.
Let's talk about the woman in your life that as you were growing up, you mentioned your mother. Were there any other role models, just female figures that you felt connected to and kind of you feel like were a big part of your journey getting to where you are today?
Unfortunately, back in we're talking the 90s now, 80s, 90s, there was no female role model. I mean, in professional services where I am, in PwC where I work, there were no female mentors. There was nobody to look up to. Mm-hmm. So I figured things out on my own. Mm-hmm. So when I joined PwC in 1992, it was a partnership of 30-something men. When I became a partner in 2002, it was me and 33 men. So there was nobody to support me or to look up to, or So that's how it was for me. But I had mentors which were male, and those people are the ones who helped me to think big and overcome my imposter syndrome, because most women have an imposter syndrome.
How are you navigating that? Because obviously you were seeing the male model, and then did you feel like you were trying to maybe emulate or copy their style, or were you trying to create your own style of like leadership, or how did you find that dynamic?
For a very long time, I was copying them.
Yeah.
If you're in a room with 33 men who are, I don't know, talking about football and joking about blonde women and smoking, and you're the only voice there, it's quite hard to actually say, do you mind this or do you mind? And it actually required a lot of courage for me to ask our CEO not to smoke in partners meetings. These are meetings for 5 hours before smoking was banned. And I would just get out of there sick. So I said, if you don't mind lighting a cigarette, and then everyone following up. So for me to say that in a room full of men required a lot of courage. So for a very long time, I was just following through. I was accepting everything, even from the way I dressed. I was dressed in black suits, trouser suits with white or blue shirts, to the way I was behaving. So I was becoming like a man instead of macho, trying to copy their leadership style. Yeah. And then it was actually one of my colleagues who mentioned that, have you realized that you're becoming like them? You have lost your femininity. So it was like a wake-up call for me. And I was like, she's right. So that was a turning point for me to switch to dresses and colors and stop standing up for myself and finding my own authenticity, my own leadership style. But it took many years before I got to that point.
How did they kind of react? Initially, and then maybe later on? how you were when you started to change?
Actually, they were very respectful, and I think they wanted to make me feel included, but they didn't know how. So I was trying to feel included by becoming like them. And when I started to have my own style or starting disagreeing with them or even calling them out for not smoking, it wasn't like, who is she that is now telling us? Actually, they're very respectful. And from there on, that changed the meetings for everybody, because there were male partners who were not smoking. They were equally bothered by that. And then, of course, smoking was banned. So I was just actually accelerating what was about to happen. But yes, there was no pushback. I was encouraged to do that from my male partners.
I mean, when did you then become a Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer and Learning Officer? Did that come later on? Or is it a consequence of maybe you starting to take these actions, asking for change where it needs to be?
Oh, it was much later. Actually, inclusion and diversity was part of PwC's agenda for many years, and someone else was leading that. She retired, and then I took over. So I've been doing that for the last 10 years now. But because I went through a lot to make it to the top, I made it my mission to keep the door open, the leadership door open for other women. So my passion started from ensuring that other women wouldn't have to go through what I went through to make it to partnership, to actually other minorities like gay people, disabled people, who would require changes to have equal opportunities in the office.
You just mentioned how it was sometimes a struggle to get to that partnership level. How did it, you entered PwC as, what was your role in the beginning?
As assistant manager in tax.
So how did you actually grow to this leadership position?
We go back to the perseverance and and the resilience and following things through. So I worked a lot, very hard, very, very hard, and raising 3 children, in such a demanding professional environment without the support we have today. Today, it's easy to, you stay home, you work remotely, you open your laptop, and you can continue your work. Back then, we had PCs, we didn't have laptops. So I would put my daughter to bed, my newborn daughter to bed, and I would go back, physically driving back to the office in the middle of the night to finish my work. So it was really hard. I would go into trainings, and because I was breastfeeding for 12 months, and maternity leave back then was like a few weeks. Gosh. I would just take my mother-in-law, would sit in the car, I would get down from training, do the break time, to breastfeed the daughter, and then go up to the training, come back, during lunchtime, do the same. So that required a lot of resilience, hard work. I don't know what...
compared to what we have today, it's I just want to understand, of course, the men in the leadership would see that. They would see, I don't want to even say struggle, but would see you kind of, going above and beyond to complete the same work, I'm guessing, as your colleagues. Was there no comments, feedback, any thinking going around the office saying, okay, maybe, something needs to be done here to encourage more women? Or...
And to be honest, I don't think they saw that.
Oh, really?
I don't think they see, because most male leaders have a woman at home. Yeah. Most of them had a housewife. Most of them, back then, now, everybody's working, but back then, most of them were supported by a full-time housewife. I didn't have anybody. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a domestic helper at home. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a house husband at home. So at some point in time, when I was trying to explain to someone what I'm going through, I said, I'm doing the job, your job, your wife's job, and your domestic helper's job, all 3 at the same time. So I don't think they realize, even today, they don't. Most of them don't realize what extra work women need to do to be in the office and show up in the same way as men show up. But I was lucky enough because my husband was very supportive at the turning point where we had to decide who would sacrifice the career to be at home. It was him who stayed at home.
Mm.
So when we had the third child, he was working for a company and he had to travel all over the world. I was working for PwC. I was traveling all over the world. The kids were left with the grandparents, week after week. And I said, this is not working. Yeah. So someone needs to sort of slow down. Mm-hmm. And it was him who sacrificed his career so I could have mine. So I was lucky in that respect that I had a house husband, but, many, many years later, not at the beginning.
And it's funny how we have to say, you're lucky that, the husband sits back down. Whereas if it was in reverse, it'll be like, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's a natural thing to do, yeah.
Natural. I'm hoping there's more of a change nowadays to kind of see that none of it is about luck or fortune, but more about seeing, having some kind of communication around that and communication around the roles and, combined vision rather of following a specific script.
This is what I say to ambitious young women, female talent. I'm also a coach, a professional coach. So when I coach people, I say to them, before you commit into a long-term relationship with whoever will be your partner, you need to have that difficult conversation. What happens, in the house, even before the kids and after the kids. So there has been progress, but it's a very slow progress. So the percentage of men that are actually helping with the housework or helping with the children, and we still use the word helping instead of sharing, because if you say help, that means it's the women's responsibility and the men get to help. If you say you share, that means it's a joint responsibility.
Yeah. Or the man is babysitting.
Yeah, oh my God. And actually, I can talk about this for hours. If men do that, they're like heroes. You picked up your child from school, you did, homework, you took your child to a game and you actually watched the game, or you went into, I don't know, a school performance and you actually sat and, clapped your child, bravo. But, when women do that, which is most of the time, it's like, this is your job. It's nothing special. So, we're still very far away from equality when it comes to these kind of things. But, there is change. But we need to push for acceleration.
I want to go back to that point you were making about ambitious women. There's so much talk now, especially on social media, about, like the, what they call it, like the boss bitch or like the independent woman. And they're saying that, well, you cannot be fully independent or you cannot follow your career with a man. As a coach, what is your approach to that?
I don't think we need to put people in boxes. Yeah. And I have full respect for women who want to raise their kids on their own and stay at home and take a career break or slow down their careers to raise their kids if that's what they really want. Yeah. But they shouldn't be pushed into that. The same way if you don't really want a career, you don't like the corporate world, not everybody likes it. Yeah, of course. And it's not for you, pursue something different. Yeah. Like my daughter, for example, hates the corporate world. She's an entrepreneur, so she started her own company. She's doing her own things. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to have a boss. She doesn't want to have an employee. Yeah. She just wants. My son is a typical employee, a corporate employee who needs structure. He loves that, and he wants to, one day become a CEO. My other son doesn't want a career. He just wants a job and have an easy life. So it all depends on, what you really want. So if a career and success is what you want and you want to reach the top, then go for it. And, don't be put off by people calling you, I don't know, names for behaving exactly the same way as a man, but all of a sudden for you is not acceptable.
Let's talk about power. You're obviously now in a more of a position of leadership. You've had a lot of leaders, and so you've obviously seen different power dynamics, different power relationships. But you're also, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. So you have a different kind of take on what is power and power taken away and power given. Can you talk about just power, especially in the workspace, and the kind of power dynamics you've experienced and seen and would like to see more of?
Yeah. Okay. Power is a big word.
It is.
I think by having a leadership position, you have certain power.
Yeah.
And you enable things to happen. And I find that the more senior I became, the more power I had. But I was trying to use, and I'm still today, trying to use that power for making lives better for people rather than abusing power and using it for personal gain. So power can be a very powerful thing for making something good, but it can be a very bad thing too if people abuse power. And I have seen both. Within PwC and outside PwC, at political level, at any leadership level. So part of my role as Chief Inclusion Diversity Officer is actually to make sure that people have equal opportunities by giving them the platform to shine, because a lot of people are just hidden. And if they don't have the personal power to either, volunteer for opportunities or ask for things, it's usually the people who are making a lot of noise that actually get noticed and progress in organizations. And usually the people who make a lot of noise are not the most competent ones. Yeah. So it takes a lot of effort to actually create the structure within an organization and enable people to speak up and give voice for people who are minorities or wouldn't otherwise be given opportunities. So that's what I try to do, using my, leadership power or whatever in actually helping people who can't use theirs.
So what does it cost a company if they don't give voices to the whole breadth of their workforce or the people, within their company?
Well, to start with, you lose engagement. And engagement is what makes people happy and is also what makes them productive and what makes corporations profitable. So when I talk about inclusion diversity also for organizations, because I actually do also consulting for inclusion diversity organizations, what I say to them, you need to talk in a language that people understand. So most people think that talking about inclusion is all about fluffy stuff. It's HR related, making people feel good. And, it's something that we need to do on the side, but we need to focus on the strategy and making money. They don't realize that by having people fully engaged, by having people happy, have a sense of belonging in an organization, actually make them more productive, more engaged, and the company more profitable. So that's what I see when I'm trying to implement things. And also they stay. I mean, the biggest problem now of organizations is to hire and keep people, especially with the young generation. The Gen Z now, they change jobs I don't know, so it's every 3-4 months or every year. They just fly from job to job to job to job. And most employers right now are having a hard time to keep these people engaged and keep them to stay longer rather than a year at most. So how do you keep people engaged and keep them happy and keep them, in the organization? Is by giving them a voice and make them feel seen, listen to, and do things that really enjoy. That's what it's all about.
When we're talking about diversity and inclusion, how do we create an inclusive space for women? Starting from the physical space, you've obviously experienced, I think, a very harsh environment where you had to go above and beyond in order to fit into that space. So how do we now adapt a space to encourage more women to stay at the job if they want to? and to feel welcome and to feel confident enough to make their voices heard.
I think that there's things you can do that have to do with the physical space, which is, I don't know, breastfeeding rooms, for example. Now we have breastfeeding room in PwC. So if you want to breastfeed your child, then you have a space, the same space. We call it wellness room. It's used for other purpose, but it's also for this. The flexibility I mentioned before, that you can work from home. Now it's a lot easier, if you have a sick child, or if, you need to attend to something at home, then you can work from home. So it makes what I call work-life integration rather than work-life balance a lot easier with technology. So all this stuff have changed and have helped. And then you go down to policies, HR policies that have to do with primarily not just maternity leave and paternity leave. I mean, and parental leaves, by the way, should be the same. It shouldn't be 6 months maternity leave and 2 weeks paternity leave. It should be 6 months for both, so you have equal sharing of the responsibility. But it goes into what I think is critically important today. That's the primary reason why women are slower to progress, which is bias. As a lot of assumptions are being made, what I said before, that I don't think men really understand what women have to go through unless you actually tell them, this is how my day has been today, how was yours. But also, what are the leadership attributes that they want to see in future leaders? It's usually mini-me's. So they're looking for younger versions of themselves as the future leaders. And that's in all organizations, and that's part of how our brain is structured. It's not that, people are broken. It's they're biased by design. Yeah. So human capital policies should be primarily focused on how do we eradicate biases? How do we make sure that we're looking for the right things when we're promoting someone, when we're remunerating someone, when we are rating someone in performance ratings, and what is this person offering? And because not everybody is the same. I mean, if you look at the leadership attributes of men, it's usually alpha male type, whilst attributes like nurturing, coaching, making sure the team is okay, giving feedback, which is usually female attributes, are seen as like soft things, not really important. It's, who makes the money, who does this, and who is the, the hardcore money maker, which is not always the case, the alpha males, but that's how it's been perceived. So to see the leadership attributes and what women bring, and not just women, even other individuals, it requires rewiring of the brain, and that requires human capital policies to be put in place to make sure that these people become visible and what everybody contributes is clearly seen.
How do we educate the next generation so that we do not need to be jumping these huge hoops and constantly educating people about something what we feel is, about respecting our, our experiences or understanding our experiences? How do we get the next generation to be able to transition a little bit more smoother?
I think communication is key. To talk and explain things. I mentioned before about coaching younger women on how to deal with relationships, but also within the office, there's a lot of communication that needs to take place. People to speak up. You need to have psychological safety in an organization for people to speak up. Otherwise, you'll just have silence and then people living without understanding what's happening. So key to inclusion is psychological safety. So younger generations can speak up. And to be honest, the younger generation speak up. Yeah. They are very vocal about, what they want and, what their life should be and, how they should progress. But actually listening to them, not just allowing them to speak, but actually listening to what they're saying is key in actually bridging the gap between what the young generation is looking for and what, older people, Gen X and even millennials are thinking of what is acceptable or not acceptable behavior or ethic in an office.
Let's talk about failure. Is there a specific moment of failure or just an incident that kind of has stuck with you? How has that changed the way you interact with the world or interact at work?
There was something. It was basically a leadership position that I was kind of promised to or earned it.
Yeah.
And then it was given to someone else. And that was, I think, probably the biggest disappointment in my professional life. But that actually forced me to look at different paths and do different things. And it actually allowed me to have a more balanced life. So that role would basically require a lot of my time spent in the office. And I was okay, now that I don't have that role and I have that free time, maybe I should start looking at other things in life. So I started traveling, I was doing other things. And I found a better relationship with life than before. Before I was like going and doing and just looking at work. And then I said, okay, when I retire, I will do this. When I retire, I'll do that. I don't have time now for this. This is now work. That actually forced me to open up to other possibilities of doing other things outside, work. And pursuing other things in life. So that was actually an eye-opener for me. Still hurts thinking about it, but, things happen in life and you just choose the way you react to what happens to you. We can't control everything that happens to us, but you can choose to control the way we react. And the way I reacted, okay, that gives me more time now, so let's do this. And and I never looked back.
What are your values? It's a big question, I know. But...
First one, I think, is integrity.
Yeah.
Second one is honesty. And it's actually honesty that caused me that position. I was honest with someone who couldn't take honesty. And then the third one would be authenticity. Be true to who you are and never compromise what you believe, just simply to fit in or get liked by people.
How did you come to these values? Were they something you think, from the beginning, or something that you had to learn?
Integrity was from the beginning. It was from childhood. That's how I grew up. And over the years, it has been reinforced because the world around us, there's so much lack of integrity from, top to bottom. So that actually reinforced me to sort of stick to that. Honesty, I have always been honest. I've been a very direct person. I mean, what you see is what you get. Yeah. When I give feedback to people, I'm brutally honest. Yes. I don't sugar peel anything, and they know where to stand with me. Maybe I didn't have the strength in the earliest years to be brutally honest, but now that I can, I have always been very vocal on what I think. And then the third, authenticity, it was an evolution from, as I said, I was just copying other leadership style until I actually found my own. And authenticity is a very powerful thing. I mean, being yourself gives you a lot of confidence because you're free to be who you are instead of pretending and trying to remember, how you should behave and whatever. And I think it's something that we lack today. A lot of people are trying to fit in. I mean, you see the younger generation. There's so much virtue signaling going on. There's so much, I want to fit into a tribe. Yeah. There's so much polarization in the world today. You're either in this tribe or in this tribe. You're either with us or against us. There's nothing in between. So I think people who are authentic don't really need to fit into anything, into this tribe or this tribe or this tribe, or belong somewhere. They just...
But it's such a vulnerable position to be in as well. Do you ever, as a leader, not feel very vulnerable in front of your group or team? And how do you kind of navigate that?
I think vulnerability is part of humility. And I think humility is lacking from leadership today. You don't have many humble leaders. You have a lot of narcissist leaders, a lot of egomaniacs, a lot of me kind of thing. Power struggles, power-hungry people.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of humble people. And being vulnerable to actually say, I don't know, or, I need help, is actually critically important in allowing other people to be vulnerable too. And that's how you create trust. So, yeah, I don't see vulnerability as a weakness and as a problem. I see that as a strength. And there have been times that I was on my own. And one of these times was during COVID. Another script I didn't follow. And I was on my own for a very long time because I didn't want to belong in that tribe.
Yeah.
I never follow things that don't make sense to me. And I refuse to follow rules that are, I don't know.
Not logical in your mind. Yeah.
And I found myself, isolated for a very long time. But pursuing what I thought was right, I would just continue to do that. And then, when COVID all disappeared, and, everybody forgot all about it. And now we're all one big happy family. But, yeah.
What gives you the strength to follow that? You have this very strong opinion about something, or something that is very authentic to you, and you have all these pressures to move away, to steer away from that. What gives you that confidence? Is it still that discipline from childhood? I
think it's the core values. I never negotiate my values. So if something is against my value, I will not do it. If something is pointless, I will not follow the rules. If there's no logic in something, I will question it. So that's how I say, I describe myself as a rebel, because I never conform to things that people say this is how it should be. And I said, why? And it comes from questioning things. It comes from, I don't know, truth seeking. I'm a truth seeker. And yeah, you need to question things and be strong. If you want to stand by your truth and what you think is true to yourself, then you find the strength to actually fight for that.
You grew up in Cyprus?
Yes.
How has the place and the space of the island kind of shaped your own values, the way you see yourself, the way you see the world? How does Cyprus play a role in your own life?
Okay, if we go back to my childhood years, I was raised by my parents up in villages because they were teachers. They were, in the early years, you get to go into various villages and teach in various schools, and then you come to the city. So I grew up not in cities, but in villages. And I got I was blessed to see the sense of community that exists in smaller villages than in towns. So that actually shaped the way I saw society and how communities would work. The other thing was that my grandfather had orchards, and I would spend entire summers picking up fruit and helping them to sell them and loading the fruit on the donkeys and onto the car and whatever. So there was a lot of hard labor and hard work. And I saw how money was earned and how savings could be built. And that's how, you get to financial independence. And that's how, again, how hard work actually shaped me. But Cyprus is a small place, and at some point in time, you find yourself suffocated by a closed society, and everybody knows everybody. I enjoyed the anonymity of London. I worked in London for a few years before coming back to Cyprus, and I got to enjoy the big cities and the freedom that. But I always sort of longed the sense of belonging and the community that we have in Cyprus. So that's what brought me back. And now I went back. I moved out of Limassol. I used to live in Limassol for many years, and now I live in a village called Zigi, on the beach, in nature, surrounded by people who are farmers, again, and grow vegetables. And I find that community actually very rewarding. And I would never go back to a city again to live.
No, I'm the same. I mean, I love my morning runs where we have two very lovely two old gentlemen playing tavli at 5 a.m. in the morning with the little light bulb on top. And I think if anything, that is the kind of life I want.
Yeah.
It's this like authentic, they live life because they want to live life.
Yeah.
And
it's actually important to realize that early in life. I realized that after that incident, I said, sort of I switched into something different, looking at life in a different way. But my daughter, who is my biggest mentor, my biggest female mentor is my daughter. She's actually looking at life completely differently. It's not about making a lot of money. It's about making enough money and spending less. So she has a very simple life that doesn't require a lot of money. So she's not into bags and jewelry and fancy stuff and whatever. She lives out of a backpack, so she doesn't need. She goes out. We don't need a lot of stuff, Mom. Yeah. And if you go away from this buy, consume into enjoy moments in life and have experiences instead, and spend all your money maybe on traveling or having experiences instead of buying stuff and load up stuff in a house, then you don't need a lot of money to actually have a purposeful life. So the earliest you realize that, the better your life is going to be.
Right. So what is your vision for the future? I mean, your role is very much about implementing change for the better for people that are not included in a lot of the time into, decision making and etc. What do you hope to achieve? And what do you hope, a collective to be able to achieve for this island and maybe even beyond?
I think that the gender equality is a very complex issue to tackle. It requires a lot of people to come together, from the government to the schools to organizations to individuals. It's not something that can be solved by one person or even a handful of people. But because the system is very hard to change, and there's a lot of people who are trying very hard for the system. For example, now there's a directive that comes from the European Union that will require big organizations to have a minimum number of women in the board, like a 30% quota, which is actually forcing people to change, because if you want to allow things to change on their own, the pace is very slow. I mean, we will both die and nothing will considerably change unless, you make interventions. So this is one of the interventions that is actually coming. And organizations need to make interventions, because if we wait for society to change or for the government to implement things, we will wait forever. So it's the private sector and from the bottom up that we need to push for change to happen. So, going forwards, my mission will still be helping women to become leaders. And I would like to see more women in boards, not just in private companies, but also in public companies, in the points of decision making. We need to have more women. And also helping women get there, because a lot of women, I'm not saying they need coaching and mentoring. I think they need guidance on the biases that exist and they need to overcome, and the strength that is required to overcome their insecurities, their imposter syndrome, their I'm not good enough, their guilt management when it comes to children. I had a lot of that, leaving my kids behind and, going to the office or, flying for work and coming back with all sorts of presents just to buy my guilt. It was part of dealing with that. So that needs to be managed early on so you don't feel guilty for not being there with your children all the time. And I chose to spend quality time rather than quantity for my kids. And that worked for me. And I have 3 independent kids, 3 master chefs. They cook all very well.
Oh, that's the best.
I am a hopeless, I don't like cooking. So that actually taught them to cook on their own. And now all 3 of them are like excellent chefs. So not everything, has a price. Actually, some things that we don't do for our kids actually help them to do for themselves and help them to become better. So, yeah.
So what is your top 3 advice points for young women now looking at their futures?
I don't think I'm qualified to give advice, but talking from experience, I would say the first thing is to pursue their goals, their dreams, and not allow anyone to stop them from doing that. Not parents saying, go and get a government job so you can, be with your kids in the afternoon, or your husband saying you need to stay home because I have a career or whatever. So just decide what you want and pursue your goals. And of course, communicate that with your partner and make sure that, that works. The second thing is, I'm a big advocate of authenticity. So be yourself and don't try to copy anyone else. And that goes to men and women as well, because I've seen many men copying the leadership style of their boss, and I find that very sad. So find who you really are and, just be true to yourself. And the third one would be to be positive. I think we have a lot of negativity in the world today, not a lot of people who think positively, and everybody's looking at the glass half empty.
Yeah.
And I think we're lack positive people in the world. So try to be positive and see the bright side of everything. Who knows what is good and what is bad?
I think that's a beautiful note to end with. Thank you, Cleo, so much.
Thank you, Aneta.
Thank you.